FIFA 22 is ending, and now is as good a time as any to go through my favorite defenders within FIFA 22 Ultimate Team. Before we do get into the video though, if you're looking to make some very easy coins, then there is no better place than Mule Factory. Head over there to get yourself some cheap, fast FIFA 22 coins, completely reliable, and if you use Fnatic5 at checkout, you'll also get yourself a 5% discount. Link can be found in the description down below. Getting back into the video. I should start out by saying that I haven't used every single player within Ultimate Team. There's a lot out there that I will probably never use. Not just because they're bronze and silver players, but because there's a lot of high rated icons, team of the years, team of the seasons, whatever it is, they're just out of my price range and I cannot afford them. So out of all the defenders that I have used, these are the ones that ended up being my favorite. Do let me know in the comment section down below what defenders have been your favorite this year, because I'm curious and I know we're all going to have different opinions. I will list a few players in here that I didn't like and ended up using someone completely different. And I know the second I mention those players, there's always going to be someone in the comments that says, no, that player's being amazing, what are you on about? So firstly, let's go through goalkeepers, my favorite in no particular order. De Gea, Maiden, Lloris, Courtois, and Keylor Navas. These have been my most used goalkeepers this year. Looking at these names, it's no particular card. For most of them, I've actually used a number of cards that were available. I did use De Gea's normal rare gold card, but I have also recently moved up to his honorable mentions team of the season. And both of them are just as good as each other. Out of this whole list, Lloris has been the one that I have used the most. He was the one that I first used at the beginning of FIFA 22 just because it worked with the defense I had, which we will talk about a bit more in just 1 second. This of course was back at the beginning of Ultimate Team where it was impossible to score. It felt like goalkeepers were saving everything inside the box, but anytime you did a finesse shot from outside of the box, they just couldn't do anything about it. I did reuse Lloris again sometime in February. He was still amazing, and I have recently used his team of the season, which is just phenomenal. The goalkeeper that's been the most surprising is Keylor Navas. I never intended to use him. It was only after I tried using Donnarumma, and this is where I may split some opinions, but Donnarumma is by far the worst goalkeeper I've used in this game. I used him right at the beginning of the year to link with my defense, and he just seemed to let everything in, even back when goalkeepers were overpowered. That is when I did first bring in Lloris, as we just briefly mentioned. I then got Team of the Year Donnarumma, the only Team of the Year that I've ever been able to pack in a whole history of Ultimate Team. I was not excited about this because I did use rare gold Donnarumma before, but I thought I'd give him the benefit of the doubt. He's a 96 rated player, surely he's going to be good, and no, he was awful. This was after playing about 100-200 games with him. And this is where I did bring in Keylor Navas, his rare gold card, and it was great. It was honestly brilliant. Moving away from goalkeepers, let's start looking at some fullbacks. My top 5 is Hakimi, Alexander-Arnold, Mendy, Theo Hernandez, and João Cancelo. The one out of that list that stands out is probably Mendy because he's the only one that didn't get a single special card the whole of FIFA 22. I bought him right at the beginning of the year when he was going for around about 100 to 120,000 depending on the day that you bought him. I believe I bought mine for that higher end, which is a ridiculous price. This was because he was the most lucrative defender to be going for right at the beginning of the year. And even though he didn't get any special cards, this rare gold card did hold up very well. I ended up using Mendy all the way up until March time where I started to look at some different replacements. The only reason I started to look at replacements was just because there was loads of special cards on offer, even quite a few that I did manage to pack myself. I do now believe that there are now many better fullbacks within the game, but I had to include him in this list just because of the amount of games that I did play with him earlier on within the year. My most used fullbacks so far have been Hakimi and Alexander-Arnold. With Hakimi, I bought his rare gold card right at the beginning of the year, just like many other players that we've mentioned. It was one of the first right backs that I ever bought, very expensive. Ended up using him all the way up until January where Team of the Year was released and he did get a Team of the Year card. That is when I upgraded him to his Team of the Year version, and I've used him ever since. Alexander-Arnold comes into this not as a right back, but in fact a left back. I managed to pack his rule breakers when that was first released, and because I was playing with Hakimi, I never used him. I didn't use him until a lot later on within the game because I was just going through as many left backs as possible and I just couldn't find one that worked. So I decided to look at Premier League right backs and played him on 6chem, and I tested quite a few. Finally settled on Alexander-Arnold just because he was phenomenal. I used his rule breakers for hundreds of games and then upgraded recently to his team of the season, which is just as good, but just haven't played as many as of yet. Still, both of these players are within my main team. With my forward backs, there was always a particular way in which I wanted to play with them. I didn't want to just use them as defenders, I really wanted to get them to push forward. One of my favorite ways to attack this year was to use the 4-3-2-1, have someone such as Hakimi as my right back. As a centre mid, I would have Mbappe, which has been converted down, and then as my right forward, I would have someone such as Garrincha. I would have Garrincha with getting behind, Mbappe would be able to push forward, and I would also have Hakimi to push forward, bringing a very powerful trio. It made life incredibly easy to get around my opponent's fullbacks because I had 3 players, 3 options that I can always pass between. I don't know if this is the most overpowered way to play, but this has been very good for me. It's probably been the only playstyle that I've been able to adapt to this year. Not a particularly amazing player, but this always worked. And this brings us on to our centre backs. My favourite centre backs of FIFA 22 are Varane, Kimpembe, Joe Gomez, Collins, his winter wildcard, not his bronze cards, and Koundé. Very similar to our fullbacks, there is one player that stands out, being Kimpembe as the only rare gold card that I've listed as a centre back. I bought Kimpembe right at the beginning of the year, and we all know that he is by far the most overpowered centre back, and I don't want to just say within FIFA 22, but probably for the last couple of years. He was in my team from the moment FIFA 22 was released back in September, all the way up until the beginning of team of the season. I had people come into my streams asking, why are you still using rare gold Kimpembe? I would then respond by showing them clips of Kimpembe being absolutely amazing, which we was able to get from that stream. But visually, he did look out of place when looking at the team sheet because we would have Team of the Year Hakimi, Flashback Varane, rare gold Kimpembe, and then as our left back, we would have Team of the Season Alexander-Arnold. It didn't look right, but he still managed to hold up with those other players. With Collins and Koundé, I never intended to use either of these players. It was just that earlier within the year, we were experimenting with different types of teams and we stumbled across these two. Collins and Koundé were both part of the exact same team that I put together as a hybrid. And even though overall that team was pretty awful, Collins and Koundé did stand out, so I ended up making them as super subs that I put on my bench, and I would substitute them on if I was looking for some fresh legs just so I can easily get that win in that second half. Even though with both of these players I didn't have them within my starting 11, I did rely on them a lot of games. We're talking hundreds of games just so that I can secure the win right towards the end. And I didn't think any other centre-back pairing would have been able to do that compared to what I had at the beginning, which was my 2 main centre-backs. But of course, by the second half, because of how I used them, they were just dying and definitely needed replacing. And these were the only 2 players that I would trust. With a lot of these players, I'm still using to this day. Right now, my defense is in net. We have De Gea. Right back, we have Team of the Year Hakimi, still relying on him. We have our 2 centre-back pairing being Flashback Varane and Flashback Joe Gomez. And as a left-back, which is actually a right-back that we are using in the left-back position, is Alexander-Arnold. And for me, this is the best defense that I've used all year. Even though for some of the cards, such as Team of the Seasons, I haven't played as much, still with the players as a whole, because of all the cards that have been released this year, I've used them hundreds of games, probably even around 1,500 for the likes of Hakimi, just because of how many games I played at the beginning with his normal rare gold card. And for all the players that I have mentioned as part of this video, it's not just been one card that I've used. For a lot of them, I've used multiple cards. The only exception is Collins because he has his winter wild card, which is 85 rated, and his other card that can be used is a bronze card, which I've never actually been interested in or even tried out myself. Collins is the exception, but every other player, you could use their rare gold card or you can use their highest rated, most expensive card, and they'll still be able to do the exact same job. Let me know in the comment section down below if you agree or disagree with any of the players as part of my list. And I'm also curious about some of the best goalkeepers and defenders that you've used within FIFA 22. Anyway guys, I hope you guys did enjoy. If you did enjoy, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. But for now, I'm going to see ya.